I, 35-year-old man, have a beautiful little girl, Laiana, 4-year-old girl, with my wife, Tammy, 35-year-old woman who graciously supported my request to give our daughter a variation of my great-grandmother's name, Lena. My great-grandmother cared for me as a baby while my parents worked and passed away when I was 7. I was heartbroken, and the only person who I felt could truly understand my pain was my grandfather, Nana Lena's son. We grieved for her together and became best buddies ever since. My Nana was very sick for a while, and towards the end of her life, she expressed that one of her regrets was never having a daughter to pass down the family pendant that was given to her by her mother. I told my Nana that I would have a daughter for her so that the pendant could be passed on, and she seemed really happy about that. When she passed away, my grandfather got the pendant and told me that it would go to whichever daughter I had. It was kind of our half-joke / half-serious understanding that we openly talked about for years. Unfortunately, when I was 12 years old, my dad cheated on my mom and got the woman pregnant. I was so angry at my dad because my mom was dealing with depression at the time and he couldn't care less. He married his affair partner after their daughter, Jessica, 22-year-old woman, was born, and I promised my dad that I would ruin their big day if I was forced to attend. When they tried to call my bluff, I put blue dye in the other woman's shampoo. After that, it was made very clear that I would not be allowed back home until I apologized. But I was so stubborn and bitter that it didn't work. My dad didn't want to have to pay a large sum in child support, so the threat didn't stick. My mom got me into therapy, which helped me process my anger, but I still kept my dad, the other woman, and their daughter at arm's length. My grandfather passed away when I was in college, and in his will, he left me some money and the pendant, which I kept in a safety deposit box. I never talked about it, and no one ever asked me about it. Fast forward to a couple of days ago, and I showed Liana my Nana's pendant, and she loved it. Tammy took a picture of Liana with it and posted it on social media. It got back to Jessica, and I guess my dad filled in the information gaps. Now Jessica is upset that she didn't get the pendant. My dad's affair partner is calling me a thief and claiming that I intentionally hid the pendant because I knew it was wrong, and she is demanding that I give Jessica the pendant as it is rightfully hers. I am refusing because she never even met my Nana, never expressed interest in learning about her, never once asked about the pendant, and as far as I know, she has no legal claim to it since it was technically willed to me. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Well, if you were still the kid who put dye in the shampoo, I would say everyone is the asshole here, but I will trust you have grown since then. Gave them fair warning anyways. I would prefer to be called a thief, however inaccurate. Willed to you, keep it, than a mistress or cheater, along with some other colorful turns of phrase. Not the idiot, not the jerk. How about you exercise that blocking feature and move on? Comment 2. Not the idiot, not the jerk. In his will, he left me some money in the pendant. Tell them to go pound sand. But I forever kept my dad, the other woman, and their daughter at arm's length. Why are you and your wife social media friends then? Go block them. Now for the update. Hey everyone, it's been a while since my last post and a lot has happened since then. First off, I want to thank you all for your support and advice on my previous post. It really helped me gain some perspective on the situation with my half-sister Jessica and the family pendant. Unfortunately, things have taken a turn for the worse. A few days after my last post, my dad and his wife showed up at my house unannounced, demanding that I hand over the pendant to Jessica. I tried to calmly explain to them that the pendant was left to me by my grandfather and that it was meant to be passed down to my daughter Liana, but they wouldn't listen. My dad's wife started screaming at me, calling me selfish and accusing me of trying to erase Jessica from the family history. The situation quickly escalated, and before I knew it, my dad had pushed past me and started rummaging through my house, looking for the pendant. I tried to stop him, but he shoved me aside, causing me to fall and hit my head on the corner of the coffee table. Tammy heard the commotion and came running, only to find me on the floor, bleeding from a gash on my forehead. She immediately called the police, and my dad and his wife were arrested for breaking and entering an attack. I had to go to the hospital to get stitches, and the whole experience left me shaken and angry. I couldn't believe that my own father would resort to violence over a piece of jewelry. In the days that followed, I started to receive threatening messages from Jessica and her mother, accusing me of ruining their family and demanding that I give them the pendant or face the consequences. I tried to block their numbers, but they just kept finding new ways to contact me. Things came to a head when I received a letter in the mail from a lawyer, claiming that Jessica was the rightful owner of the pendant and that I had to hand it over immediately or face legal action. I was stunned. I had no idea how they had managed to find a lawyer who would take on such a baseless case. I called my own lawyer and explained the situation, and he assured me that I had a strong case. The pendant had been left to me in my grandfather's will, and there was no legal basis for Jessica's claim. However, he warned me that going to court could be a long and expensive process, and there was no guarantee that I would win. I was torn. On one hand, I knew that the pendant rightfully belonged to me and my daughter, and I didn't want to let my dad and his wife bully me into giving it up. On the other hand, I didn't want to put my family through the stress and expense of a legal battle. In the end, I decided to try and reach out to Jessica directly. I sent her a message explaining my side of the story and offering to meet with her in person to talk things out. To my surprise, she agreed. We met at a coffee shop and I brought the pendant with me. I showed it to her and explained the history behind it, how it had been passed down through the women in our family for generations. I told her about my Nana and how much she had meant to me, and how I had promised her that I would pass the pendant down to my own daughter someday. Jessica listened quietly, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. When I finished, she took a deep breath and said, "I'm sorry. I had no idea about any of this. My mom and dad always told me that the pendant was supposed to be mine, and I just assumed they were telling the truth. I never meant to cause you and your family so much pain." I was taken aback by her apology, and I could see the sincerity in her eyes. We talked for a while longer, and I realized that Jessica and I had more in common than I had ever realized. We were both victims of our parents' mistakes, and we had both struggled to find our place in the world. In the end, I offered to have the pendant appraised and to give Jessica half of its value in cash. She agreed, and we parted ways on good terms. I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, and I was grateful that we had been able to resolve the situation without resorting to legal action. However, when I got home and opened the safety deposit box where I had been keeping the pendant, I discovered that it was gone. In its place was a note from my dad saying that he had taken the pendant and given it to Jessica, and that I would never see it again. I was devastated. The pendant had been a symbol of my connection to my Nana and my family history, and now it was gone forever. I couldn't believe that my own father would betray me like this, and I knew that our relationship would never be the same. In the weeks that followed, I struggled to come to terms with what had happened. I felt like I had lost a piece of myself, and I didn't know how to move forward. Tammy was supportive, but even she couldn't fully understand the depth of my pain. I started seeing a therapist again, and slowly but surely, I began to heal. I realized that the pendant, while important, was just a physical object. The real value was in the memories and the love that it represented, and those could never be taken away from me. I also came to terms with the fact that my relationship with my dad was beyond repair. He had chosen his new family over me time and time again, and I knew that I needed to let go of the hope that things would ever be different. It's been a tough few months, but I'm slowly starting to feel like myself again. I know that I'll always carry the pain of what happened, but I'm determined not to let it define me. I have my own family now, and I'm focused on being the best husband and father I can be. Thank you all for listening and for your continued support. It means more to me than you'll ever know. Am I the idiot for considering divorce after my husband sprung full-time step-parenting on me without asking? I, 34-year-old female, have been married to my husband for 4 years, together for 7.5 years, and we have 2 children, 2.5 years old and 5 months old. My husband was married before we met. He and his ex-wife separated during her pregnancy with their daughter, 13 years old, and divorced after she turned 1. To my stepdaughter, I am Dad's wife. I'm okay with that. We get along fine mostly. She does struggle to be left with me in charge. My husband knows this. We have discussed this at length. We have worked together to figure out solutions. We even talked with his ex, who is okay with me being around her daughter. I know some aren't, but did not like the idea of her daughter being with me if she could be with her. They don't have a right of first refusal and didn't get it added after this discussion, and generally didn't love that I would be in a parent role if alone with her kid. She has a very big dislike of the idea of step-parents becoming just parents, and she has never wanted her daughter to view me as any kind of mother figure. So discussions were had and agreements were made. On to our issue. My husband always has a very busy period of work in June, July, and he's basically just home to sleep and nothing else. In June, his ex is having surgery and will be out of commission and in the hospital for some time. The ex's surgery was not mentioned to me at all, but Saturday night while we were at my in-laws' house, my husband started venting about his ex's surgery and her not wanting their daughter to be in my care all day, and his daughter not wanting to have me in charge of her that much, and how he told them I would be doing it and nothing they said or did would change this. He was pissed at his ex and his daughter a little for having such a dislike for me being in charge, even though we get along fine. I asked him when all this happened, and he said it had been a few days. He told me she would be with us from June 6th until July 4th, and possibly longer, that he was already told he will need to work most Saturdays in June and July. So he told me I'd need to figure out how to best deal with that. I asked him why he sprung this on me in front of his family instead of discussing it privately. He waved me off and said he knew I wouldn't say no because I love my stepdaughter, and I understand that she needs to be with an adult. He saw an expression on my face and told me I couldn't be pissed about it when I know my stepdaughter is still a kid. I told him I wasn't pissed at her. I was pissed at him. He told me he can't help his ex and his daughter being somewhat unreasonable. My mother-in-law chimed in and offered to take my stepdaughter during the daytime for June. He told her I would handle it. She should be with us. This is when I accused him of treating me like the hired help and not his wife because he wasn't discussing it with me and was making a decision for me without asking or discussing things through. It was afterward he told me I shouldn't speak to him like that in front of his family. Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. He shouldn't treat you like the hired help in front of his family if he doesn't want to be called out for it in front of his family. Not once did he ask if it was okay with you. Sadly, this situation has come about because of the relationship they have fostered between you and SD. His ex has been adamant to keep you in your place, that she didn't have the foresight to think that this situation might occur where they have to rely on you. The ex needs to get over her insecurities. Comment 2. You're not the idiot. He is treating you like hired help, just telling you what you are going to do without any prior discussion and agreement. It was afterward he told me I shouldn't speak to him like that in front of his family. Bless his heart. He deliberately brought this up in front of his family so that you would be less likely to call him out on his rude behavior. And he was being a dismissive AH to you. He deserved a lot more pushback than he got. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post and for all the support and advice. It's been a chaotic couple of weeks since then, and I've got quite the update for you. So after that disastrous conversation at my in-laws' house, my husband and I had a long talk when we got home. I explained how hurt and disrespected I felt by him making decisions about my time and responsibilities without consulting me first. He apologized and said he understood where I was coming from, but also stressed how important it was to him that his daughter be with family during his ex's recovery. We agreed to try and find a compromise. Over the next few days, I reached out to my stepdaughter to see how she was feeling about the situation. She admitted that she was nervous about spending so much time with me, but also said she appreciated me checking in. We had a really good heart-to-heart, and I think it helped us both feel more comfortable with the idea of her staying with us. But then, just a few days before my stepdaughter was supposed to come stay with us, my husband dropped another news on me. Apparently, his ex's surgery had been postponed, and now she wouldn't be going in until mid-July, which meant that instead of having my stepdaughter for a month, we'd have her for almost 2 months straight. I was livid. Once again, my husband had failed to communicate with me about a major change in plans that would directly impact me. I told him as much, and we got into a huge fight. He accused me of being selfish and not caring about his daughter's well-being, while I shot back that he was the one being selfish by constantly putting his ex's needs above mine. Things only got worse from there. My husband started spending even more time at work, leaving me to handle everything at home with our 2 young kids and now my stepdaughter as well. I was exhausted and overwhelmed, and I felt like I had no support from him. Meanwhile, my stepdaughter was struggling too. She missed her mom and was acting out in ways she never had before. One day, she had a full-on meltdown when I told her she couldn't go to a friend's house because I needed her help with the baby. She screamed at me that I wasn't her real mom and she didn't have to listen to me. I was at my breaking point. I called my husband in tears, begging him to come home and help me. But he brushed me off, saying he was in the middle of a big project and couldn't leave. That's when I knew something had to change. The next day, I packed up the kids and went to stay with my parents for a few days. I needed a break and some time to think. While I was there, I started looking into my options for divorce. I hated the idea of putting my kids through that, but I couldn't keep living like this. When I finally came home, I sat my husband down and told him I was considering leaving him. He was shocked and tried to talk me out of it, promising to be more present and supportive. But the damage had been done. I just didn't trust him anymore to put our family first. It's been a few weeks since then, and we're still trying to figure out what comes next. My stepdaughter is back with her mom now, and my husband and I are in counseling, but I honestly don't know if our marriage can be saved at this point. I feel like he's broken my trust too many times. Looking back, I realize now that a lot of our problems started long before this summer. My husband has always had a hard time setting boundaries with his ex and putting our relationship first. I guess I just never wanted to admit it to myself. Anyway, that's where things stand now. It's been a really tough few months, and I know I have some hard decisions ahead of me, but I'm trying to stay strong for my kids and do what's best for all of us in the long run. Thanks for reading and for all your support. It means a lot to me. Am I the idiot for telling my wife she needs to get over her fear of pain? After a minor cut, my wife, 32-year-old female, and I, 34-year-old male, went to the gym yesterday morning, and at some point my wife, we'll call her Laura, scratched her finger on something. Laura has a history of being selectively sensitive to pain and discomfort. She is a strong and capable woman that I love, but if it's 80 degrees with a breeze, Laura will talk herself into it being too cold to stay outside. The joke between us is she is like the princess in the Peace Story. These things happen often. I am not exaggerating in the slightest when I say this time the cut was less than half a centimeter wide and 2 millimeters across, just surface level, no larger than a paper cut. Later that night, she remembered the cut and had what I would describe as a meltdown. She said her finger pain was throbbing, she was feeling nauseous from the pain and said it was becoming too much. I offered to clean it with hydrogen peroxide, but she said it would hurt too much. I said it bubbles but doesn't burn like alcohol, and you need to clean it if you cut it on gym equipment because it's dirty. As soon as I put a few drops of hydrogen peroxide on it, she collapsed to her knees and said she could not continue. I admit I got a little upset at the theatrics, but it was nothing new at this point. Then after I rinsed the wound in the sink, she is still on her knees crying. I told her I was going to get Neosporin and a Band-Aid, to which she begged me not to add Neosporin because it would hurt. I explained to Laura that Neosporin actually would cause no pain and even add potential relief. She yelled when I put it on and nearly fainted. At this point, I was a little upset and potentially the jerk. I tried to explain to Laura that her body was very resilient and she is a tough person because I've seen it in our workouts and the way she can work through brutal work challenges and environments. However, she needs to work on her psychological hang-up on discomfort like this. We want to have kids in the next 2 years, and in all honesty, I don't think she can handle childbirth right now. I said it's something we can work on together, but to start, she needs to get serious and adopt the mentality that her body can handle a lot. I told her it's upsetting that she seems to just give up and surrender to any pain, like she has no will to shake it off. What example would we be setting for our child? What would happen if you were injured and needed to get help without me? We ended up getting into an argument about this. I feel like a jerk, but I don't know how I could have approached this differently. Edit context. First, I would like to thank everyone for sharing their thoughts and suggestions. Second, I would like to clarify that I am one of those lucky few that married someone they consider their soulmate. Despite my comments coming across as callous and patronizing, I love and care for my wife tremendously, and I don't believe she sees it that way. However, I'm here for that outside perspective. I'll be with my wife until I'm dead or she finds someone better, even if that means carrying her around for the next 80 years. Lastly, while we have visited doctors in the past, we may not have placed enough value on getting another opinion. That is something I will bring up with my wife again. I do not typically hold an opinion when it comes to my wife's medical care. I believe I may have an old-fashioned approach to doctors, as I have had some bad experiences with misdiagnosis and overprescribed treatments. My attitude when it comes to my wife has always been to get the care that she thinks she needs, as I cannot make that decision for her. We both acknowledge there are differences in the way we pursue medical care. I have never suggested her symptoms or desire to meet with a doctor were not legitimate. When she had not gotten to a diagnosis from doctors and they suggested treating it like it was nervousness or anxiety, we both kind of considered it psychological, a pain in the butt, but not overly serious and something we could work on. As my post here would suggest, that is easier said than done. It's a huge gray area trying to figure out if you are being too controlling or if you are enabling. My wife does not have red hair. TIL, hydrogen peroxide is no longer recommended for cleaning wounds. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. You literally described how my 5-year-old reacts to cuts. Selective pain and serious overdramatics. I am working with him to understand that these things are part of life and just a normal part of taking care of your body. I snapped both bones in my arm recently and almost died giving birth a few months ago. Pain is a fundamental part of the human condition, and I try to model and discuss that with my kid. As I tell my son, crying is fine if you're hurt. Refusing to handle the care of your body with equanimity is not. Your wife is crazy and mature, and if you do have kids with her in her current state of behavior, you're going to raise kids that behave the same. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Always funny how Reddit wants to jump to the conclusion that the victim has some rare neurological disorder rather than the more likely scenario that she is just whiny. If you fully believe your wife is a healthy adult, yes, that seems like annoying behavior. My thoughts are the same as yours. I wouldn't want to put this person through pregnancy and childbirth. What if they are alone with the child in a situation? I want my mother's child to have the strength to carry on. I don't think that's an unfair expectation of a healthy adult. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks so much for all the comments and support on my last post. It's been a rough 3 months since then, and I've got quite the update for you. So after that whole fiasco with Laura's finger cut, things were a bit tense between us for a while. We both knew we needed to have a serious talk about her pain sensitivity and how it might affect our future, especially with kids in the picture. But before we could even sit down and hash it out, life threw us a curveball. About a month after the gym incident, Laura started experiencing severe abdominal pain. At first, we thought it might just be a bad case of period cramps, but when the pain didn't subside after a few days, we knew something was up. Laura, being the trooper she is, tried to tough it out, but I could see how much she was suffering. I finally convinced her to go to the ER, and that's when we got the shocking news. Laura had an ectopic pregnancy. We had no idea she was even pregnant, as we were using protection and she hadn't missed a period. The doctors explained that the fertilized egg had implanted in her fallopian tube instead of her uterus, causing the tube to rupture. They had to perform emergency surgery to remove the damaged tube and stop the internal bleeding. I was a wreck during the whole ordeal, pacing the waiting room and praying for Laura to pull through. When the surgeon finally came out and told me she was stable, I broke down in tears of relief. The next few weeks were a blur of recovery, both physical and emotional. Laura was devastated by the loss of the pregnancy and the realization that her fertility might be compromised. I did my best to be there for her, but I was also grappling with my own feelings of guilt and helplessness. As Laura healed, we started to have some tough conversations about our future. We both still wanted kids, but we knew it might be a more difficult journey now. Laura also opened up to me about her childhood, revealing that her pain sensitivity might stem from a traumatic accident she had when she was 8. She fell out of a tree and broke her arm, but her parents didn't believe her when she said how much it hurt. They thought she was just being dramatic and didn't take her to the hospital for 2 days. That experience left a deep scar on her psyche, making her doubt her own pain tolerance and fear not being taken seriously. Hearing her story broke my heart and made me realize how insensitive I had been during the finger cut incident. I apologized profusely and promised to be more understanding and supportive going forward. We also decided to seek couples therapy to work through our communication issues and make sure we were on the same page about our family planning. Fast forward to now, and things are looking up. Laura's recovery has been going well, and we've been having some really productive sessions with our therapist. We're taking things one day at a time and focusing on strengthening our relationship before diving into the world of fertility treatments. It's been a tough few months, but I'm grateful for the lessons we've learned and the way it's brought us closer together. Thanks again for all the advice and well wishes. It means a lot to have this community to turn to during the ups and downs of married life. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.